was watching the World Trade Center burn on fire after an aircraft reportedly hit it on TV, and when the second aircraft hit. So it was struck by a commercial airliner, as everybody now knows. The second airliner hit 17 minutes later on an adjacent building. My boss and I heard a really loud roar, and then there was a distant boom. So I'm working at the Navy Bureau of Personnel a quarter mile north of the Pentagon, just up the hill at the time. The loud boom, loud roar, smoke coming up the hill, and thus began one of the most impactful days of my life. I was working at my desk, my most administrative assignment ever. Boss asked if I heard a plane hit a skyscraper in New York City. We didn't think much of it. We were thinking it was a commercial plane with a mechanical problem or something. Everybody, I think, was slow putting the pieces together. My boss said, no, it's a commercial jet. It was loaded with people, and it hit one of the trade centers, and now the building's on fire. So the office we had no TV. We had one TV in the wing down on the second floor or second deck. He said, hey, let's go look and see what's going on. So we walked downstairs. We're watching it on TV. And, of course, 17 minutes later, we were watching TV when the second plane flew and hit the second tower. That building caught fire, too. So we said, hey, let's get back to work. Don't know what's going to go on. Don't know what's happening, really. But things are probably about to get busy. So we walked back to the stairwell to go back up to the third floor where we worked. We heard a really loud boom, like somebody rudely slamming the double doors in the stairwell. And then the chirp of the fire alarm. So the fire alarm started screeching through the whole building. I got up to the third floor, and people were scrambling. Some were heading to the exits. A lot of people didn't know which way to go. They were just moving around kind of blindly. I was a junior officer in the building, so I was elected fire marshal, which was a pretty thankless job on a normal day. But so what I did, since we had a random number of people in the building at any day, at 6,000 total our building could hold, but there were 2,000 to 4,000 traveling at any given time. The only way to get accountability of all those people was literally just flush them out from one end to the other. So I started on the third floor. I pushed everybody out, hung up phones on people. I checked the bathrooms. I checked the showers. I checked the janitor's closet. I pushed everybody to the stairwell. And then brought them down. By then, the firefighters had showed up at the Navy Annex. Again, we're a quarter mile northwest of the Pentagon. I told them, hey, the building's clear. I know you guys can't take my word on it. So they flooded in and did their thing to verify it. So we got in the parking lot, which is where we're supposed to go for a fire drill. Chief of Naval Personnel, he's a two-star admiral. He was our boss. He said, hey, there was a plane that flew into the Pentagon, another commercial airliner, and it hit the Pentagon lawn, may have hit the Pentagon. He said there were certainly casualties, and he said they're probably going to need help. If anyone wants to help, feel free to go down the hill. Again, a quarter mile. So 4,000 people all started down. The whole herd moved because people try to help. People try to make things better instinctively. He said, stop. If you have medical training, so I was a tactical medic for the SEAL teams. Before I got commissioned, so my boss said, "Go on, try to check in if you can." We didn't carry cell phones because we were told the cell phone networks were down, and nobody could communicate. We just took whatever we had. I was dressed in khaki, similar to this. I walked down the hill to the Pentagon, so a quarter mile under a bridge, Columbia Turnpike. I'm on the Pentagon lawn. There's a black ringed hole in the side of the Pentagon, the west wall of the Pentagon, right above the helicopter pad. And firefighters are already showing up. They're backing up fire engines, laying hoses. They're starting to spray stuff. And then military, our group, probably about 200 to 400 of us, depending on what time, because people were still streaming down the hill. We flowed in, and so we loosely organized into teams. And we said, hey, we've got to do something. So firefighters are doing their thing. We're not coordinating with them. So we say, hey, let's go into the hole and start looking for casualties and see if there are any survivors, if there's anyone trapped in there. Really grisly old fire captain. who I'll never forget, said, "Stop, what are you doing?" And we said, "There are survivors, we got to go in there." And he said, "No, you don't know the status of the building. You don't know what's going on. We don't know what's burning. I'm not sending my people in there, and none of you are going in there." So we a couple of us put up an argument. We got shut down, thankfully. And he said, "Just back it up." I got posted as a traffic cop, and an Air Force major got posted as a traffic cop. He said, "When we need bodies, we're going to go to you two, and you send us however many we say, and you keep out the flow." Again, people want to help. So now, firefighters are there, a bunch of military from a quarter mile away. Police start showing up, and they say, "Hey, this is a crime scene. We're in charge." Military brass starts flooding out of the building from the backside of the Pentagon, unaffected by the blast. And so a whole bunch of people with stars and all come out and hem and haw, and they say, "Hey, this is military property. We're in charge." The FBI was last on the scene. So they show up and they say, "This is federal property. This is a federal crime. We're in charge." So the grizzled old fire captain says, "When you guys figure out who's in charge," I'll leave the expletive out, he says, "Send him to me and I'll tell him what to do." We all know firefighters deal with danger and chaos on a daily basis. If anyone can sort things out, it's them. So they were the natural leaders out of the initial confusion of, "Hey, what do we do? Who's in charge?" And then everyone just trying to take charge and barking orders. Firefighters won, hands down. They were way out in front of everyone else on site, even before they fully knew what was going on. So the firefighter, the old fire captain, choreographed the initial response, but he was not telling the firefighters what to do. They knew what to do. They'd unload the trucks, get the hoses running, back up and keep people away. They're doing what they do, and then he just kind of orchestrated it, because there are probably about 150 of them from various fire departments all showing, and more coming constantly. The military body pool, again, we started probably with about 200. We ended up with about 400, and then more were coming. Our crowd was growing restless. We were pushing closer to the wall, like, "Okay, nothing's being done. We need to get in the building again." So the fire captain looked at me and he's like, "You two keep these people back, or I'll fire you, and I'll find two people that will." Again, people want to help. So he pushed us back, kept us probably 150 yards from the building. He allowed a couple military and civilian doctors and nurses right up against the side of the building, because there were some survivors in there, some people in a bad way, and now life flight helicopters started to arrive. So they were flying into the Pentagon, landing between the helicopter pad and the Pentagon wall, and they were taking out the most critically injured before they got to us. The rest of us formed up into about 20 trauma teams. So now you have ambulances backing up, and they said, "Take whatever you need off our ambulance." So we were stripping them and gutting them, pulling out stretchers. I was plugging IVs, and we were getting ready for a rush of a whole bunch of burn victims, possibly bleeding, maybe some amputees. We didn't know what to expect. So we got trauma stations ready for the next wave of people that didn't get life flighted. So looking back on it, I probably saw 6 patients. 5 of them walked out under their own power. They were coughing up smoke. A couple put out fires on their uniforms, might have had minor burns. 6th one was a lady that came out unconscious, face down. We checked her vitals, and she was overcome by smoke inhalation, but she was probably going to be fine. So we put all of them on oxygen, sat them down, and we waited till the rush stopped so we could get them out by ambulance. One of the guys that I saw and checked his vital signs took off his oxygen mask, went and got a piece of tape, which is how we were marking ourselves as first responders, put tape on his arm, and he said, "No, I'm in this for the long run. I'm fine." So I protested. I said, "No, we got to get you under observation." He goes, "Well, observe me while I'm help me make this better." So he did that. Sadly, there were very few survivors. Everyone was either lost on the impact, either from everyone on the plane, definitely. Anyone in that wing. Magically, the wing was under reconstruction. It was being renovated, and it was nearly vacant. Knocking on wood. So there weren't a whole lot in there. I'll give you the numbers later. So I saw one firefighter. Everybody's busy. One firefighter's not. He's sitting in the truck in the air conditioning. And I went over and banged, in a slow moment, I banged on the door and I said, hey, what's going on? Well, he was the probie. He's the new firefighter. And the captain ordered him to sit on the big base station radio that coordinated with all the other fire departments. And he said, you sit here and you let me know if I need to know any information that doesn't come across my belt radio. He was very upset about that. Obviously, I mean, he wanted to get in, he wanted to help, and he didn't like his role, which was monitor the radio and call me if you need something. It'll come into play in a minute here. So, quick personal observation. You lose track of time when you're threatened or stressed, and so a lot of these events are a blur. I had to look up some of the times. So I remember the sequence of events. Sometimes I don't remember exactly how long it was between this and that. Just before 10 a.m., I watched over 100, probably 150 firefighters, all out moving around, spreading hoses, spraying stuff, moving ladders, directing people. Every one of them sat down or took a knee, like on command. Like they were all hooked to a power grid and somebody turned the power off. Everyone took a knee. They remained that way for 30 seconds. And then all of a sudden they just got back on cue and they went right back to it, like nothing ever happened. And probably one of the most remarkable events I've seen in my life. I went over and banged on the fire engine where the probie was sitting, and I said, oh my God, what just happened? So he said World Trade Center 2 had just collapsed and likely killed all of the first responders in the building. And it came across the base station and all their personal radios at the same time. Everybody heard it, and everybody had to do a 30-second timeout, and then they went right back to it because that's what they do. That's their DNA. Let me catch up here. So a few minutes later, someone yelled out, hey, there's a fourth aircraft in the air. So we're still slow tying together the New York attacks with the Pentagon attack. We realize there are attacks going, these are definitely attacks going on. We were just kind of, we're looking at what's in front of us and we're not really connecting it. Someone said, hey, there's a fourth aircraft. It's heading to either the Capitol or the White House. We don't know. And it's 6 minutes out. And then so everyone yells, 6 minutes, 6 minutes, 6 minutes across the crowd. And then someone says, aircraft 6 miles out. So with another aircraft possibly coming into the Pentagon or nearby, we all ran under the 110 overpass. So probably about 500 yards from us, there was a overpass. It offered a little bit of cover. It's not going to stop if the plane hits directly. But we waited for about 5 minutes, breathlessly, wondering if something was coming in, and then they called an all clear. So we did that three different times. Aircraft's coming, the sky's falling, run under the underpass, come back out and reset and get back to work. Someone said that terrorists were attacking all up and down both coasts. They hit the Seattle Space Needle, the Houston Astrodome, and so all these attacks were coordinated and they were going on all across the nation, not just on the East Coast. So the point there is, again, we're directly threatened or we're stressed out, and once we got down real close to an incident, the only information we had that was reliable was on the immediate incident. Cell phones weren't working, we didn't have radios, we didn't have television, so we were victims to the rumor mill. So when somebody said they're attacking all over, I don't know where they heard that rumor, we took it as gospel, like, geez, all right, well, we got to do our part because apparently everybody's going to be taxed all the way up and down. I already talked about another observation point. People try to be helpful. Sometimes the challenge is to organize them and direct their helpful energy. So again, people show up, people start moving wherever they think they're moving in the wrong direction. They start unloading or loading stuff. They start moving people around, and sometimes you just have to guide them and say, here, come on over here. Get people away from the flame. So once again, we, the non-firefighters, pressed it up against the crash site. Because again, we're still convinced that there are survivors. We've never dealt with a plane crash before, and we're thinking there are people in there that need help. Fire captain kept pushing us back. And then at some point, we had a sedan sitting by the helicopter pad that always sits there in case congressmen land by the Pentagon and they can't fly for some reason because of weather or mechanical problem. They get in this sedan and they drive into D.C. The sedan was pretty close to the flame. So We're pushing, trying to get closer to the Pentagon wall. The fire captain's keeping us back. And then suddenly there's a loud whoosh and a boom. And the gas tank on the sedan caught fire and exploded, probably about 50 yards from us. So, we back up like sheep. We don't know what it is. We're scared. But it goes back to what the fire captain was saying. You don't know what's going on in the situation. And so you got to stay away from the danger. So a half hour after that, that probably happened at 10:10. 10:40, there was an even louder whoosh. And then there was probably a 50-foot column of white hot flame that shot straight up in the air from the left side of the helicopter pad. Unbeknownst to any of us, even the fire captain, there was a big tank of aviation fuel right next to the helicopter pad, which was also heating up. And then it popped a pressure disc, jetted up, and then caught fire. It was quick, but again, we didn't know what it was. Was it a follow-on attack? We don't know. Probably not. And then so 10 minutes after that, about 1 hour and 27 minutes after United Airlines Flight 77 hit the west wall of the Pentagon, the one section collapsed that you might have seen in the video. So the concrete was initially fractured on impact, and it was weakened. It had rebar in there. It was built very strong. It's supposed to be built for attacks. But it was crippled, and then the fire sprinklers were wetting everything down on all the floors, and then the firefighters were also directing water into the flame and wetting it down even more. And finally that section just gave way and came down completely. So the point there is, again, back to the old fire captain, he was right. If we don't know that, we would have had people in there had nobody said stay out of there and taken the cue that there were no firefighters in there. So he didn't know what was going to happen. He knew what might happen, and he wisely protected a lot of it. I'm knocking on wood again on that day. So I remember these significant events, since we may have had a bunch of us inside there, first responders. I remember the captain's advice. Bottom line, I spent one of man's worst days working the crash site at the Pentagon for almost 12 hours. I jumped into my old comfort zone. I was setting up IVs, moving people around, getting stretchers ready to go, doing primary and secondary assessments on a surprisingly, shockingly small number of people. We were breaking down and moving equipment. I saw burned and bleeding people streaming out of the Pentagon, and even more carted away on medevac helicopters, the life flight helicopters. More importantly, I saw seemingly ordinary people doing extraordinary things, even when it wasn't their job. Firefighters, police, military, newly off-duty doctors and nurses went above and beyond on the Pentagon lawn, away from their hospitals, emergency, and operating rooms. At the end of the day, 189 people were killed at the Pentagon on September 11th, to include 58 passengers, 4 flight attendants that were on United Airlines 77, 2 pilots, and 125, thankfully only 125 military and civilian people working in the Pentagon. I don't relive these events over and over in sorrow and regret, because it epitomizes my approach to life, family, and my work. My takeaways are, you can't always control where you are and when, and under what circumstances. You may not have the right skill set tailored for the specific situation. You often don't get a choice on how you may contribute, which leads to confusion and uncertainty. To sort quickly through the chaos and your setbacks, apply your experience and skill sets to improve the situation. Make things better around you. If you don't know what to do, try to make it better. Do your humble part to make the world a better place. Tragedy can haunt you and drag you down, or you can focus on riding the bow wave of inspiration of humans who rise to the top when life deals them their worst hands. Thank you.